Yeah.
Just go straight
So
up.
you just go straight.
Okay,
Just
okay.
like a slight, just for drainage.
Yeah, yeah.
Might be a little problem if you're trying to get out on that side though.
Well, you,
Guys,
you mean if
especially
you're,
the mobile
Because
guys.
that's not flat curb, that's regular curb.
Right.
you're supposed to get out here.
She works for Huron Valley Humane Society, way back when I so.
Okay, yeah, that's cool. That's why we have the architect around.
That's why I was asking him.
He said it first.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
I didn't want the drawings. I feel bad when I throw it all out. I gotta recycle it.
For the last
I'm like,
5
I just
years,
gotta
every
make this.
birthday or Christmas present I have given anybody has been wrapped up in really interesting white and black and sometimes full color elevation drawing wrapping paper.
I think I'm gonna do that this year.
And my little nieces and nephews, all of the art that's on the refrigerator, if you look at the back, you can see some really good technical drawings and stuff because the paper doesn't go to waste. We use that paper at my house.
Rotate this so you can actually see it. So my son, we got a kid for him.
Checked
That's where they
with
all
my niece.
go.
She teaches autism, but they're older ones now. And I was thinking, do you need paper to draw on?
Like it was folded, just so you know.
Oh, check this out.
Oh, the paper isn't as nasty when it's rolled.
I used to take the computer sheets that came off of the dot matrix, the wide ones,
I'm ready. We
and
can
that's
roll
what
the
I would put,
candles.
sketch out my footballs.
She was like, she does not count as
And
and she's-
remember
she's
that
got a
long
lot
green
of,
bar paper we used to
Yeah.
right, yes, right. Like if you give her a treat and you say, no, don't touch it. She will not eat it even if you give it to her in a hand.
see it from the
She'll be like,
service
okay,
charge.
if that's how you
If
want it, you
it's
can
gonna
eat it
go along
yourself.
this entire
And then I
road.
have to say, sorry, I didn't mean it that way. So she's got a lot of self-esteem.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, she told me. And if you say, drop it, she won't come near it again.
Well,
Just
the other option is that black security stuff that goes
that
around
you
the
did,
data
she gets you
center.
into giving it to her.
She talks into
I
it.
bought some pants and she lost them, but I guess now she found them. After somebody, she
But at
dropped
night,
a
she
gift
will not
card
go
for
up
me
no
at the
matter what
dealership.
time. She will
And I'm
sit
like,
next to
well,
me.
that
Sometimes
was
I would
nice.
feel
She
like
didn't have to do
12,
that.
1
And then
a.m.
the next
She'll
day
be so
she finds
tired.
the
She's laying in a little
pants.
dog bed that she got when
So,
she was a baby.
I don't know if I
lifted
paid
her
for
up.
the
Mommy's
pants
still
or
got
not, but I
And when I
told
say,
her
okay,
that. I'm
mommy's
like,
done,
I'm not
let's
sure
move
I
on,
paid
then
for
she'll
it.
come trotting
Yeah.
in with me. She will not go to bed till I
Double
go.
bonus.
Our dog
So-
puts
Go buy
herself
top
to
or
bed at like
something.
8:30 every night. She goes upstairs.
Yeah, Misty
Really
will go
knows
up
you
at
'cause
10,
she
but
knows
then
that
after
you'll-
10,
you'll
she's
spend
like,
some
"Oh,
other-
Mom is not here.
Right.
You'll
You'll
come
buy
back
some
and
other
break down."
things.
So,
Right. Yeah, I gotta support those businesses.
Newspaper.
You know?
Oh, newspapers aren't out there?
and it's in the family room
My
and there's only
daughter's,
side lamp lights, and my
gift
family will never
cards
turn on the
there.
lamp light unless I do.
don't
I'm like, for God's sake, don't sit on her.
Well, that funeral service,
can't
I
see
think,
it
was
at all.
until Friday. Bob Marchek.
First 7 members meeting.
He did the artwork.
Two dogs, and
He died suddenly over this weekend.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Wow.
63 years old.
because I was here
Yeah.
in February.
I want to get like another foam mode
Then
box,
Callie
except my
left
older son is very
1 or 2
allergic.
meters
She's
after
the only
me.
one that he's been able to like.
When did
Yeah.
it happen?
He was terrified of her
Saturday or
initially.
Sunday?
Terrified.
He
He was
died.
so mortally afraid of dogs. If he sees a dog, he'll actually
Suddenly.
run across a 4-lane traffic road to go
Well,
to the other side.
I
So it took him a
haven't
lot
read
to,
about it.
like-
Greg told me, and he thought it was like
But
a
again,
while
he said,
ago.
okay, we'll
And I'm
get a
like,
puppy. I said,
"That's
you
why
do
I
know
haven't
once the
seen
puppy
him
comes
around."
into the house,
Just happened
whether
this
you like it
weekend,
or not, the puppy is not going
Janet
back out.
Millard had a thing in, you know, that said she hated to go to work because she'd worked with
They're
him
not
for so
like a
long.
piece of
And
furniture that you just.
she hated to go into the office on Monday because they'd worked together.
We are
you know,
gonna
for
wait
the
for
last-
Director Power, right?
last
Oh,
6
oh,
years.
did you just walk in?
Yeah.
We're looking at the time. So,
We are waiting.
we're probably on air.
And the newspaper.
Sorry about Bob, Rosemary. I can stand on your.
We're waiting. We're a little upside down. There we go.
I was waiting. I thought Bernie was going to try and stand on his head.
Yeah, it was, yep, there you go.
Are we ready? Okay. Welcome. We are at the Wednesday, August 23rd, 2023 meeting of the Planning Commission of Van Buren Township. At this point, I'm calling the meeting to order. Could we rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And roll call, please.
Atchison. Here. Peter Creel.
Here.
Bernie Grant.
Here.
Sherry Budd.
Here.
Jackson Paul.
Here.
Jeff Jar.
Here.
Brian Cullen.
Here. And we need, the agenda is before us. I need a motion to approve the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, motion to approve the agenda.
Do we have a support?
Support.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have the minutes also of the previous meeting of August 9th, 2023. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes as?
Through the chair, make a motion, we approve the regular meeting minutes of August 9th as presented.
Support.
We have a motion support. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We don't have any correspondence, public hearing, or old business, so we're on to new business. Item number 1, case 23047, Continental Cafe, FSC, Con, Van Buren, Michigan, DST, fence modification. A request by Kimberly M. Lair of Continental Cafe LLC on behalf of owner FSC COM Van Buren, Michigan, DST, for a modification under section 7.205B2 of the Van Buren Township zoning ordinance to allow the installation of a chain link fencing up to 6 feet tall with 3 strands of barbed wire on top. The site is located at 7850 Haggerty Road, parcel number 83-0199-0001-711, on the west side of Haggerty Road between Ecorse Road and Coca-Cola Drive. Can we have a presentation by the township staff?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. My apologies. I'm just working on getting some things loaded up for the discussion on this topic. As you mentioned, the first request on tonight's agenda is a request for a modification from a couple of standards from the township's fencing ordinance. I'd like to pull a couple things up on the screen, so give me just one moment. And I believe we have somebody representing Continental Cafe with us tonight, so thank you for attending. Please allow me to put this on the screen. Okay. So, as mentioned, the request is for a modification from a couple of standards from the township's fencing ordinance. Kimberly Lair of Continental Cafe on behalf of FS Con Van Buren, Michigan, DST, has sought a modification under section 7.205B2 of the Van Buren Township zoning ordinance to allow the installation of chain link fencing up to 6 feet tall with 3 strands of barbed wire on top at 7850 Haggerty Road. The parcel is located on the west side of Haggerty Road between Ecorse Road and Coca-Cola Drive and is zoned M1 Light Industrial. And the site has an existing 68,665 square foot building, which relatively recently, in I believe 2017, underwent a site plan review for an addition. There are a couple of standards of the Van Buren Township zoning ordinance that prompt tonight's request. And the first is that under section 7.205B2 of the Van Buren Township zoning ordinance for parcels in the M1 zoning district, all fences or walls erected shall be of a decorative nature, which excludes chain link fences. However, fences located in the side or rear yard may, at the discretion of the Planning Commission, be non-decorative, or for example, chain link, provided that they are not directly visible from the public rights of way. And so the first request before you tonight is to consider this fence, which is in the side yard, to be allowed to be a chain link for security purposes, and because it's not in a highly visible location. And additionally, under section 7.205B2D, security fences in the M1 zoning district may only have barbed wire if the Planning Commission authorizes it. So the Planning Commission may permit barbed wire, spikes, nails, or any other sharp instrument on top or on the sides of a fence in this district, provided that you on the Planning Commission determine that the barbed wire, spikes, nails, or other instrument is necessary for the safety and security of the site. This packet includes some explanatory material from the applicant, primarily an application form, some drawings, and an initial email which stated the reason for the request, which was to provide protection and housing of fleet vehicles in the portion of the property that is identified on the screen. And just my analysis of the request is fairly brief. It's primarily that we have a situation where there's a storage area or vehicle parking area that's roughly 390 to 400 feet from the property's front lot line and is concealed by landscaping. There does appear to be a valid security concern with this request, and so long as the landscaping that was recently approved under this site plan that you see before you is in place and is installed according to the approved landscaping plan, I see no reason not to recommend approval of the request. And so my only condition on the request tonight is that the site has sufficient landscaping installed in accordance with the latest approved landscaping plan for the property, which is, it's transcribed on this plan. It's a little bit more clear on this plan, which was in our files from the approved Planning Commission project. So just upon field inspection, staff will verify that this landscaping is still installed adequately and conceals the proposed fenced area. With that, I would like to acknowledge there's somebody from the ownership group here tonight. And I don't know if you'd like to speak on the request, sir. Feel free to come up and go to the microphone. I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, you can, that turns it back to Mr. Chair to invite that discussion.
That's fine. Yeah, we can rerun it. Please make sure you state your name.
Sure. Jim Martin. I work with Continental Services, Director of Loss Prevention. We've had in this area over the last couple of years, really funny timing, a case just came up on it. We've had some catalytic converter theft happen in that area. We've got staff coming through that area. We're a 24/7 type business. We've got somebody coming through that parking lot pretty constantly. So we're trying to do what we can, more than anything else, protect our staff from anything that might happen, which is why we added not only the fence but the barbed wire too. You know, scaling a 6-foot fence, it's just an added deterrent for us more than anything else.
Okay. Planning Commission, do we have any questions, comments?
My only comment would be is it sets so far back off the road and it is in the very back of the property that, I mean, I don't see it being a problem. We've allowed it for safety, and I don't see a problem with this.
Okay, anybody else?
Chair, I have a question. You mentioned it's further back on the site down the road. You mentioned you're doing it for your workers, your staff. What do you do with the rest of it? I mean, are they just going through the backside, or is it, are they taking the converters from all the cars?
So we've only had thefts in that back area right now where our trucks are parked overnight. All the rest of it is staff parking that kind of comes and goes throughout the day. I think anecdotally, maybe the converters on our box trucks are more expensive, more valuable, something like that. They're all, I'm not a car guy. They're all E350, E450, expensive to replace for sure. And so we have stuff that's parked there, more consistently outdoors just because of the business.
How many thefts has there been over the last year?
Boy, we've had at least 3 separate incidents, 1 to 3 each time. And it's just something that it's tough to catch the people that do it too, and it takes a long time if you ever catch them to get to, prosecution, remuneration, all that kind of stuff. So trying to prevent both that and again, staff safety was the most important thing for us.
Through the chair, my question is, how are they getting in? Are you sure they're coming in through the fenced area? Or are they just driving through, walking through the open area?
Yeah,
How do
so
you know it's going through the fencing?
what they do, so we don't have any fencing that exists on the area now. What they're doing is they're coming in off of Haggerty Road. They'll drive through O'Reilly's parking lot next door, kind of look at ours, and then circle back around and come over to the lot and just walk on. There's no barriers or anything, a couple of trees, but they're just walking up, parking next to our vehicles and all that, so.
And those vehicles move every night?
Most of them move daily. Some of them, maybe they sit there over the weekend, something like that. It depends on the truck's usage.
So the fencing will surround the vehicles where nobody can come in and out. Is there going to be a door that automatically opens when the vehicles are then leaving?
Question. We have a gate set up with badge access, so drivers will pull up. Only someone with the badge will be able to open the gate and then pull in, and it'll close behind them after. I don't know off the top of my head how much time lapsed, but pretty quick after.
I don't have an issue. I do want protection for our businesses in the area, and that has been a huge problem this year with the Cadillac converters. I'm sorry for your loss, because it's not good.
Through the chair, I have a follow-up question. I understand, I agree with the security part of it, but I do have a question regarding why, a fence like that with barbed wire versus a decorative fence, maybe with, the curving splines at the top, because it seems like it's the gate that's the problem, because they have to go through the gate one way or another, right? So if they get in, they still have to get through the gate, or they have to go through the gate to get the automobile. So why not have a decorative one doing the same thing?
So the reason for the barbed wire is they pull up next to our vehicles because it's convenient.
Right.
But you don't need your car to do it based on the videos I've seen. You just need whatever sawzall. I'm again not a tool guy either. And they just throw that over there. Sometimes they'll just leave it after they cut it off too.
So you're saying it's going to keep them from going over to cut them off and throw them back over the fence. So it's the barbed wire that's keeping them out.
That's right. I'm not a barbed wire guy either. I don't really like the look of it and tried to avoid it, but yeah.
Yeah, I try and understand. Yeah, I can see it. Yeah, they just throw the parts over. They're not looking for the cars.
Yeah.
They're not looking for the vehicles. Okay.
Right.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner?
I'd like to ask the representative to clarify a statement. I believe he said that this fence is to protect the staff. It sounds to me like this is to protect the fleet vehicles. Is it correct to say that the employee and staff parking is not behind this fence?
Most of it is not, no. However, our staff would spend most of their time, so in the parking lot area, they're there for a matter of minutes. But in this area, they'd be out operating, loading things. We have some staff that comes in overnight. We had an incident at another building where, up in Sterling Heights, where somebody missed somebody else robbing us of some catalytic converters up there by maybe 15 minutes at 1 o'clock in the morning. So we have staff that's out in the parking lot overnight in that area for, up to an hour or something like that. So
Okay. I will comment that the reason I'm asking is because this isn't, again, I'm very sorry for your loss and the crime. It's not good. That's not good at all. But the question before us is whether or not a chain link, barbed wire, hurricane fence, whatever we call it, is more appropriate or is an appropriate substitute for the decorative fencing, decorative security fencing that we have surrounding other buildings in that area. And the reason I asked, is this going around an employee lot or is this going around a fleet lot? If it's an employee lot, no one wants to work in a location that has barbed wire fence and hurricane fencing. It doesn't make for a pleasant work environment. I've worked in one. And in this instance, this really is a back lot. This is far enough back off. As long as Director Power is sure that the landscaping will prevent this from being seen from drivers along Haggerty Road, then I think I'm okay with it, relaxing the standard and allowing it to be the chain link looking fence instead of the more expensive and decorative security fence that we typically use in the front of the buildings. That's all I had to say.
Anyone else? Any other comments? Do we have any comments from the public? Anything on Zoom, Director Powers?
We do have one attendee, so anybody on Zoom who would like to speak about this case or any case, please feel free to raise your hand remotely or type into the chat. This is about the Continental Cafe fencing. I don't see any hands raised or chat, so we're all set on that.
Okay, do we have any action then by the commission?
Through the chair,
Commissioner Atchison?
I move to grant Continental Cafe, FSC Con Van Buren, Michigan, the fence modification requested by Jim Martin and Kimberly M. Lear of Continental Cafe, LLC, on behalf of the owner, FSC Con Van Buren, of the modification under Section 7.205B2 of the Van Buren Township zoning ordinance to allow the installation of a chain link fencing of up to 6 feet tall with 3 strands of barbed wire on top. The location is 7850 Haggerty Road, parcel number 83041990001711 on the west side of Haggerty Road, between Ecorse Road and Coca-Cola Drive. I am asking for the record that staff letter drafted by Dan Power be included and requested for this modification in this request.
Do we have a support?
Support.
So we have a motion by Commissioner Atchison, supported by Commissioner Grant. Do we have any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Sherry Budd,
Yes.
Bernie Grant,
Yes.
Peter Creel. Yes. Medina Atchison,
Yes.
Jackson Paul,
Yes.
Jeff Jar,
Yes.
Brian Cullen.
Yes. Motion carries. Go ahead with your fence. Okay, item number 2 is case 20005, amended final site plan request for mobile gas station redevelopment and drive-through. A request by Stonefield Engineering and Design on behalf of owner IS Real Estate LLC, Belleville Oil Company Incorporated, for an amended preliminary site plan to demolish buildings on an existing gasoline station site and to construct a new convenience store with retail and food service, including a drive-through lane and 1 drive-through window, gasoline pumps and related site improvements. The plus or minus 1.06 acre site, Zone C1, General Business District, is located at 11250 Haggerty Road, tax parcel number 83051990003 at the northwest corner of the intersection of I-94 North Service Drive and Haggerty Road. Start off with a presentation by township staff and consultants.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To show the overall view of the site. I do have other plan drawings and renderings of the site available to display as we go through tonight's comments as necessary, but just to give a summary view of the site, I wanted to put this on the screen. We're at the point in this project where, as you heard from the chair, we're considering site plan approval, and I do have to acknowledge there was a typo in the description portion of tonight's agenda. Although the title was correct, the description was incorrect. My apologies. It is a final site plan that we are considering approval of tonight, so we can just clarify that in the motion. I think the language was left over on the statement not being preliminary site plan. But we're at the point in the project where the project has now undergone preliminary site plan approval by the Planning Commission earlier this year in the spring. Now it has gone through extensive engineering review by our township engineer, as well as review for compliance with preliminary site plan conditions by our planning consultant and fire marshal. And so if this project is conditionally approved or approved tonight, the next steps will involve assembling a pre-construction package, having a pre-construction meeting, finalizing permits from Wayne County and the township in order to begin the site construction. I will also note that you've probably noticed there's also been demolition occurring of the actual previously existing building on the site. But with that said, I will go ahead and turn the rest of the comments on this request over to first our planning consultant, Senior Principal Planner with McKenna, Vidya Krishnan.
Thank you, Director Power, members of the Commission. The request before you tonight, as was summarized, is for final site plan approval for a site on which a gas station is being constructed along with a fast food restaurant and drive-through. The drive-through is a special land use in the C1 district and was approved by the Board of Trustees on 1st of June 2021, and that special land use remains valid at this time. The Planning Commission granted a one-year extension for the preliminary site plan approval on June 8th of 2022. Subsequently, the applicant, during their redesign phase, made some changes to the plan and came back for amended site plan approval before the Planning Commission, and preliminary amended site plan approval was granted in April of this year. Since then, the applicant has been working on the conditions of preliminary site plan approval and are before you tonight for the final approval. I'll summarize the conditions of preliminary site plan approval in brief. One of the requirements was for something that was labeled as a safety bar on the exit lane of the drive-through, and we wanted to make sure that there's not actually a physical bar that is blocking the lane, but in fact just a striped paint on the pavement, and the applicant has clarified. There was also some concern about conflict if a refueling vehicle, truck is there, refueling the underground storage tanks, whether it would block exit from the drive-through lanes of the fast food restaurant. And the site plan clarifies that delivery of gas and goods will occur on an automated schedule during the non-drive-through hours and during off-peak hours for the convenience store only. So they're going to try and adjust the time schedules to avoid this conflict. There is a bypass lane on the west side of the site, and that was reviewed and approved by the fire marshal. We had asked for clarification regarding the hours of drive-through operation and the truck and the tanker delivery areas. The hours have been noted, along with confirmation that the hours will be staggered in a manner not to create any conflicts on the site, and that will be subject to code enforcement should it become a nuisance issue. There was an extra parking space added on the southeast corner of the site where previously landscaping was shown. We had asked the applicant to eliminate it and put the landscaping back on, which they have done at this time. The landscape plan needed to be revised to match the site plan itself, with respect to where the outdoor area, seating area, or amenities area is shown. And the applicant has made the revision so that the landscape plan and the site plan comply with one another. Most of the site meets the landscape ordinance requirements. The Planning Commission did modify the 10-foot greenbelt buffer along the north side and the west side of the sites because of the small area of the site. Having a wider 10-foot wide greenbelt would prevent circulation around the building or safe emergency access through the bypass lane. So the deviation was granted. In addition to it, the ordinance also requires 5% interior parking lot landscaping. The plan which would translate to about 1,500 square feet of interior lot landscaping. The plan proposes about 982 square feet. In order to comply with that particular requirement of the ordinance, they would have to eliminate more parking spaces. We believe the site is parked appropriately at this time, and loss of any spaces, especially since this is located on the service drive and will receive freeway traffic, can cause issues. We do not recommend loss of any more parking from the site. So we are requesting that the Planning Commission accept the landscape plan as proposed at this time. A tree survey clarification has been added. The site has minimal number of existing trees. The few trees that are being removed are not regulated species. The other trees that are being preserved have been identified on the plans. The biggest thing we had with regard to a revised plan was the photometric plans. The illumination level on the site far, far exceeded what is allowable by our ordinance. So the applicant was asked to completely revise the plans and come back with new lighting plans that was in conformance. And at this time, we do have a photometric plan that meets the ordinance standards. The elevations have also been revised, as was discussed at the preliminary review. If the Planning Commission recollects, the applicant had made a case for having a flat roof on the gas station canopy because a peaked roof results in drainage flow and issues. And that has been seen on other sites also. So in lieu of having a flat roof canopy for the gas station to still make it architecturally appealing, they have wrapped brick all the way around to the top of the columns, as was asked by the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission also found the proposed architecture of the drive-through building that was previously presented to be acceptable. The site does have an existing non-conforming pole sign on the southwest corner, and a note has been added to all plans clearly stating that the sign will be removed. And finally, the applicant does need township engineer and Wayne County approval, and I think they've been working with the county for a while now, and at this time, I'll defer to the township engineer to give an update of whether they have the final written approval from the county. All of the planning-related preliminary site plan conditions have been met at this time, so our recommendation is that the Planning Commission grant final site plan approval for mobile gas station with the drive-through restaurant to be located at 11250 I-94 North Service Drive as presented, with the requested modification to the interior parking lot landscaping. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Fishbeck conducted a final engineering review on the final site plans for the proposed multi-use building with self-service fueling facilities located at 11250 Haggerty Road. This project entails the removal and reconstruction of existing gas station with a new multi-use building and gas station at the northwest corner of the I-94 service road and Haggerty Road. This letter that I'm reading for you guys today is an update to our first engineering review that we did. We went through a second review due to some back and forth with the county and the stormwater that I'll get into in a little bit. So the applicant's plans are showing adding a new water main service. It'll be a new water service lead that will run along the north side of the property, and it'll tie into an existing 8-inch ductile iron water main located in the Haggerty Road. They're also adding a brand new sanitary sewer. There's an existing 10-inch public sanitary sewer line that runs north-south along the west side of Haggerty Road. The applicant proposes a connection of 2 6-inch sanitary sewer leads from the new building that will tie together, and then it will have one connection to the public main in Haggerty Road with the Y connection. The main feed will connect directly, while a separate line will also be connected via shear GB250 grease trap before tapping into the existing main in Haggerty Road. At this time, the applicant just recently revised the plans to remove the entire sanitary lead to provide a 6-inch lead per the engineering standards. Storm sewer, so the applicant is proposing to utilize some of the existing catch basins and storm sewer that are on site, as well as provide new catch basins and storm sewer And this storm sewer system will be conveyed to an underground chamber detention system underneath the parking lot by the eastern entrance drive off Haggerty Road. The underground detention system will outlet into a outlet control structure, which will then discharge into a proposed pump station that will lift the stormwater to a pipe that will ultimately discharge into an existing curb catch basin within Haggerty Road. So an update, there was, like I mentioned, there was a little bit back and forth with the county. We had to redo our engineering letter, and I believe at this time it is mostly ironed out with the county, and maybe if the applicant's here, they can touch base a little bit on that. We do not have final approval, written approval from the county yet. So our stormwater acceptance is still contingent on that. But at this time, our latest email correspondence with the county, they requested one or two minor revisions to the plan and an updated set submitted to them. So at this time, there's not final county approval, but we believe they are close. So last but not least, Fishbeck at this time is recommending the Planning Commission grant the multi-use building with self-service fueling facilities final site plan approval, contingent to the comments in our letter and county approval of the stormwater management design. I'd be happy to answer any questions you guys may have. Thank you.
Okay, and do we have anything from the fire marshal? Director Power.
Yes, we do, Mr. Chair. Thank you. The fire marshal has indicated one outstanding item that may impact whether there's an additional hydrant on the property, which would have to be something that would be addressed with the final issued for construction plan set. And part of what the township engineers help us review with the pre-construction submittal, which is that there's a requirement as of August 16th, there was no flow test data received in the latest submittal. If the required minimum flow of 1,500 gallons per minute is not obtained with a flow test, a second hydrant will need to be installed. So that is one outstanding item on the fire marshal's letter that I would ask the applicant to verify they understand that requirement and be prepared to address that. The second comment is specific to fire department access. The fire marshal mentions that all fire department access concerns have been addressed in the March 7th letter and the latest site plan submittal and comply with section 18.2.3 of NFPA 1 of 2018. And then finally, with respect to emergency responder radio coverage can be field verified at the time of the final building inspection. So the flow test data is one outstanding item that we will have to monitor as part of the pre-construction submittals. That concludes the fire marshal's comments.
So at this time, do we have a presentation to the applicant?
Good evening, everyone. Eric Williams with Stonefield. Address is 607 Shelby Street, Detroit, Michigan. Appreciate everybody's time this evening. I believe Vidya and Mike spoke to their recommendations. We're committed to work with Mike and Fishbeck to finalize the engineering plans. As he mentioned, Wayne County did come back with two final comments. One was just relative to the water quality unit construction details, so the physical structure underneath the ground that nobody would ever see. So we've addressed that, and then they were looking for some clarification on the difference in the calculations of what the township requires versus what the county requires. I think their previous letter had mentioned we had all met and thought we had it hashed out, and unfortunately that didn't seem to be the case. But in any situation, I believe they committed to a response by the end of the week, so we would hope we have a final approval in hand at that point. And then we'll obviously work with Fishbeck just to tie up any final loose ends. But other than that, nothing else to add. We appreciate the time and are happy to answer any other questions.
Okay, Planning Commission. Do we have any comments, questions? None? Yes.
I will make just one final comment. As an update to the pole sign, that's been demolished and been removed. So that's already in compliance there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Can I ask when you took it down, sir?
When was that?
Yeah.
It's been about 10 days ago, I would say.
No, it hasn't.
Up there at 9 o'clock this morning still.
Really?
Yes.
Well, that's not what my contractor said, so.
Well,
Your
and my-
contractor's wrong.
It was not gone at 9 o'clock this morning. That's why
Yeah,
I
it
wondered
will
when-
be gone. It was part of the scope of work that we signed
Right.
with them, but I did drive by, the building was demolished.
It is.
So-
Everything
so
is
that today was
demolished.
my first day going there since they started the project. I didn't see the pole sign though. Maybe I just didn't look hard enough or something. But I will. We'll make sure that's removed.
It's still
Thank
there.
you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Sign, but probably the pole is still standing, so the pole also needs to come down.
We understand.
sign
that.
on top of the pole
Yeah,
was there
That was
yesterday.
also there.
It's all still up there.
It's all
Be removed. Thank you.
Chairman, I have a
I gotta drive by.
question. I have a question for Director Power with regard to the pole sign and its current status. No construction is to begin until that pole sign is down. Is that my understanding? Is that correct?
The condition can be framed that way. If you want to give staff that guidance, we could, typically that's what would happen is you'd have that as a prerequisite to any building permit being issued to make sure that all the planning commission conditions are addressed. Or you could consider whether it was a condition prior to any certificate of occupancy. Of course, having it be a condition of building permit gives a little bit more leverage on the front end to make sure that it gets done earlier rather than later. But you can provide staff some direction on when you'd like that condition to apply. Certainly before certificate of occupancy for the building is what I would recommend.
Does, Mr. Chair, I'm wondering if any of our consulting staff has an opinion on how that condition would be put in. Should that be something we do at a time? Or is that something we can do as a precondition to occupancy? What have other communities done in this condition?
So the pole sign is something that the planning commission is directing be removed. So it should technically be part of the demolition plan. You do not start a building permit without completing demolition. So if you were to set a condition, I would suggest that you set that demolition activity be completed before issuance of a building permit. That'll ensure the sign comes down first.
Thanks.
Okay. Anybody else? Comments? Questions?
Question.
Commissioner?
It just did mention that as of August 16th, there was no flow test data. Have you guys scheduled a test, or do you have anything planned for that coming up?
Not sure. We'll reach out to the fire department. Yeah. With all due respect, in regards to the condition of the pole sign being removed, it is part of the scope of work. We're happy to provide you with the contract with our demolition contractor showing that it is going to be removed. In the spirit of progressing things along, I've brought my contractor here. Not the demo guy. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I heard him, he said he's not the demolition
Listen,
guy.
Yes.
You know, our understanding, and maybe there was a miscommunication, this was supposed to be a pre-construction meeting along with final site plan approval, so perhaps we got that mixed up. But we certainly want to get going on this as fast as possible. I can assure you that that sign will be removed, and we're happy to provide you with the contract in lieu of making this a condition or anything like that, just so we can get the proper permits pulled and properly move things along before we get the cold weather coming through here. Thank you. Appreciate your understanding on that.
Through the chair, I might just clarify too, that's a very good point. What I sometimes term this level of review as is almost like a pre-construction meeting or a glorified pre-construction meeting of sorts, because when you get to the final site plan stage, everything but minor details should essentially be addressed at this point. So pre-construction is usually right around the corner when we have this final site plan meeting. That's probably a good mindset to have, is that we should be pretty much at pre-construction stage at this point.
Commissioners, any other comments, questions? Okay, is there anything in the public?
And so again, members of the public attending tonight, if you have any comments or questions, feel free to raise your virtual hand or type into the chat. And I believe this is Mr. Mahdi, who's with the applicant's group, so maybe those comments have been addressed already. So I don't see any comments in the chat or hands raised.
Okay. Then do we have any action on this item?
Mr. Chairman, a brief moment of discussion. The pole sign issue concerns me because it has come up several times now with some question about whether or not it's going to be removed. And it seems like it's, you know, the demolition of the building has been done for some time. I understand it's a scheduling problem with a crane or something like that. I get it. That's okay. Just so that I understand in my mind, a normal way of presenting a condition on this is that, in fact, the normal way of handling things is that demolition should be completed before the building permit is granted. Is that correct?
That is typically how it works.
Is that typically, or is that something we have to specify? I guess is what I'm asking. Is that a natural progression that the building permit would not be granted until demolition was complete?
Typically, yeah. I mean, sorry, it is
Typically.
typically. Time and conditions as part of your recommendation, but that's the convention, is to have it before building permit.
Mr. Chairman.
Through the chair. So can the applicant still apply and get that process moving forward without the pull down, or?
Yes.
So it would just be the final approval of the building permit, so it wouldn't delay the applicant from applying and moving forward if it's a crane issue, right? Because I guess my opinion is I would hate to penalize the applicant because if it's a crane issue, but if it's already in the contract for demolition, it's getting done, we know it's getting done, I don't know the history, right? But if they can still move forward with applying with the final approval of the site plan, assuming it'll be passed today.
Indefinitely.
And that's just a question, I guess.
Indefinitely, if they didn't take it down, they won't be able to occupy the building when it comes time to go in.
There you go.
So that's the bottom line. It's always about occupancy.
Through the chair, I support both commissioners here and their opinion. I do want the business to be able to move forward. And then, you know, Jeff, you know, the issue with the pole, make it as part of occupancy. I'm sure that it will be gone based on, you know, what the applicant is indicating.
And we're happy to
Don't
provide
want to
you
hold you.
with the contract, with the scope of work demonstrating that it is part of the agreement and demolition.
Well, the fact that it's in the documents already says it is.
It is. So. Yeah, we're happy to provide a picture when it's removed or the inspector come out.
We'll know.
We will know.
Pardon me. Spoke out of turn.
That's fine.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Jar.
In the matter of case 20-005, at this time, I would move to grant the applicant Stonefield Engineering and Design on behalf of the owner LS Real Estate LLC, Belleville Oil Company, the final site plan approval for the mobile gas station redevelopment and drive-through, subsequent demolition and related site improvements at the site located at 11250 Haggerty Road, based on the analysis and subject to the conditions detailed in the McKenna letter August 16th, 2023, Fishback letter August 17th, 2023, Fire Marshal's letter August 16th, 2023, and the letter of staff dated, gee, Dan, when was that? The letter of staff included in this agenda,
conditions, that's okay.
August 17th,
Right, yeah, thank you,
2023,
Commissioner.
submitted for your consideration.
Do we have any support on that motion?
Support.
Do we have any discussion on the motion?
We're all going to be driving by.
On the way home.
Yes.
With that, no other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Jackson Paul. Medina Atchison.
Yes.
Peter Creel. Bernie Grant.
Yes.
Sherry Budd.
Yes.
Jeff Jar.
Yes.
Brian Cullen.
Yes. Is approved. Final site plan. Ready? You're welcome. Just get that sign down. Yeah.
I think he's gonna be making a call real quick.
Okay. Item number 3, zoning ordinance amendment discussion, childcare uses. The Planning Commission will review a proposed zoning ordinance text amendment to modify the requirement under section 5.111 of the Van Buren Township zoning ordinance that requires a minimum separation distance of 1,500 feet between two licensed group daycare home uses. First up, presentation by staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Planning Commission first reviewed this topic formally on their last meeting agenda on August 9th. There was some draft language that was proposed to provide some flexibility within the Van Buren Township zoning ordinance requirements for daycare or childcare uses where our zoning ordinance requirements had imposed verbatim separation distance requirements between group daycare homes and other licensed uses under state of Michigan law, which corresponded to the exact language in the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act, except that the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act also allows for townships, planning commissions to have flexibility to still grant special land uses despite of those separation requirements. So in the context of having a capacity issue in our area with group daycare homes, specifically focusing in on the requirement from the 2006 Zoning Enabling Act language that required 1,500 feet between two group daycare home uses, we wanted to bring forward a consideration to the Planning Commission to allow modifications from that requirement in certain circumstances. And so the original language, like the language you see before you tonight, had the ability for the Planning Commission to modify that requirement based on a finding that traffic, drop-off, pickup times, and other issues that may impact the adjacent neighborhood have been considered and found not to be of concern. And the significant change from the way that that language was written into this ordinance on August 9th, as opposed to what you're seeing tonight, is that we still start with a baseline separation requirement of 1,500 feet, and then the Planning Commission can recommend to the Board of Trustees to modify that specifically for group daycare home to group daycare home separation. There are no other changes recommended regarding separation from other licensed uses, like there's several other ones listed: child care centers, adult foster care facilities, and others. But specific to the group daycare home use, there is that requirement. This section also did have just a clarification on how this measurement distance is determined, and we took the language right from the Zoning Enabling Act with respect to the distance requirement, and it is measured along a road, street, or place maintained by the state, county, or local unit of government, and generally open to the public as a matter of right for the purpose of vehicular traffic, not including an alley. So very specific direction on what that distance is based on. Ms. Christian, I apologize. I meant to be doing a summary, and then I think I just did the whole thing. So feel free to clarify anything else you'd like to.
Thank you, Director Power. I think you summarized it pretty well. The intent was the Planning Commission wanted to have the ability to approve more of these homes while still providing for some room for protections. And when it says the Planning Commission may require additional measures, it may be staggering drop-off and pickup times, or basically restricting areas where drop-off parents might park to protect the rest of the neighbors, but not necessarily preventing a use. And adding a clarification that that it's not as the crow flies, it's as you drive.
Right.
It's a better clarification. So I think the ordinance is just basically making it more clear, ability to have more of these uses while providing you with opportunity to protect the neighborhoods too.
Okay. Do we have discussion? Planning commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, my concerns from the previous meeting have been addressed. This looks good to me.
Can I ask a question of staff, please? how does this impact HOA, like, subdivisions? Does the HOA kind of overrule the state, the 1500? Like, how does that play into it?
That is a very good question. I have come across in one neighborhood, and I'm still looking for some guidance on that from the state of Michigan. With respect to the township, our zoning ordinance is deferential to any private covenants or restrictions or bylaws, and so we'd respect if there are any. Those bylaws would still have the ability to restrict certain business operations or uses. I'm not sure of the role of the state of Michigan, LARA, and their ability to supersede private organization bylaws. I'm not sure, Ms. Christian, if you've come
Typically, the
across that.
township does not enforce HOA rules. That's not the township's role. The township will enforce only the zoning ordinance, and the individual HOA rules is up to the HOA to enforce. This being a state-controlled use, that's something we will have to look into, but I think the separation of powers is pretty clear over here. We will not touch the HOA's rules. It's up to them to make up their own rules.
No, I wasn't saying that the township would, come in and, enforce HOA. I am asking if somebody wants to put in a daycare and it's against the HOA guidelines, bylaws, does the state supersede the HOA?
At this point, I do not know the answer to that, but what I can tell you is with the township's role in review, the typical process is going to be that we will administer whatever review we have to administer, and as part of that local review, we will make sure that there's an HOA approval that's associated with it before we go ahead and sign off either on an administrative approval if somebody's doing modifications to make their home a family daycare home, or in the case of a planning commission review, we'll make sure that if there's an HOA, their approval is part of, it's already set before you review that. What I've heard is that when a proprietor wants to have a new group daycare home is that they need most of their local approvals before they even really have their full licensing process fulfilled by the state of Michigan. So that would come up later in the process. We'd grant a special land use permit, and then the licensing people would come in and kind of fine tune and verify everything's set indoors.
Through the chair, I have one clarification kind of along the HOA line of thought. In the second amendment or the proposal language there, it says along a road, street, or place maintained by the state, county, or local unit of government. In an HOA, the streets are typically maintained by that HOA.
Correct.
Does it need to state something different in that? Because I'm thinking in an HOA, we want it to still be 1,500 feet, I would assume.
That is a very good question, Commissioner Creel, and I think we,
I don't know
we
that
would break
HOA
the,
defines as a local government, right? But
would not qualify as a local unit of government, but what you'd look at is, I think, in this case, you break apart the road, street. The road or street would still stand on its own, even if it's a private street. So a commonly understood street or place that has
or place maintained. Okay.
Yep,
Okay. Thank
that would
you.
be my interpretation.
Chairman? Just as a preliminary, I just quickly looked up Commissioner Atchinson's question, and we have to look into this more, but it says that HOA rules do not supersede state law. So if the state has rules similar to public schools, like the state basically reviews where public schools are located and the details that go with them, I think their rules would hold over a HOA's rules. We will look into it more and just confirm it.
Anyone else? Other comments, questions?
I'll just, so I do know that solar panels are allowed to be blocked by the HOAs. So just something to look into, because if they're allowed to block solar, I would assume that they would be allowed to block other things.
Through the chair, along with what Commissioner Paul is indicating, I believe in my subdivision, somebody tried to start a business, and I don't know the details, but I believe it was a daycare, and they basically denied it, indicating that it was a business. So I'm thinking the state has a need, you know, that they would, and I'm just want to get ahead of that before we're faced with it or we say no, and the state wants it and supersedes the HOA. That is it.
Okay. Anyone else? Comments or questions? Okay, do we have anything from the public? I don't see anyone on. There's usually a red dot or a green dot out there.
Thing, yeah.
Okay, so the next step then would be to check out this to make sure as far as the state is concerned and the HOAs.
If you could schedule a public hearing, in the
And then-
meantime, we will do the research and bring back the information
And
to
then
you
he-
regarding the separation of who can regulate what.
Okay, so the next step is public hearing.
Yes, please.
And when can we schedule that, Director Power?
It would likely be the second meeting in September, which would be, I believe, the 27th.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Commissioner Jar?
would you entertain a motion to direct staff to schedule that meeting at the nearest opportune moment?
Absolutely.
I would make that motion now, sir.
Okay, do we have support on that?
Support it.
In favor?
Aye.
Aye. I would assume I could do an aye vote on that. It's not a, okay.
Any nays?
Any nays? No. Okay. So go ahead and schedule a public hearing. And moving on, item number 4, Administrative Development Project Reviews. Staff will provide updates on Case 22055, Administrative Review of DTE Gas Company Projects, construction of valves and minor access, fencing, and landscaping improvements associated with underground natural gas pipeline at 7015 Haggerty Road, parcel ID number 830039900180001, and 45581 Ecorse Road, parcel ID number 8303399002000. Commissioner, or Director Power, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Planning Commission, at the last meeting, we went through a number of updates on projects that were being administratively reviewed by staff. And there's a category within administrative review or zoning exempt review that's considered essential services. And we have quite an extensive amount of essential service work happening in the township. If you've noticed on Ecorse Road lately, there's a lot of work being done primarily related to what I'll be talking about tonight with DTE bringing in some natural gas lines for redundancy of their overall natural gas system in the area. And so without getting into too much detail, because we don't have a lot of detail about how this all connects to the overall system, I just want to give an update to you all in the Planning Commission that there are two sites where two sites on private property outside of rights-of-way where you're seeing some construction activity being done by DTE, or you will be soon. The first, as mentioned, is, let's see if I can be savvy enough to use my, maybe not. The first is 7015 Haggerty Road, and there is a valve actuator and regulators at that site and the site on Ecorse Road, which help to allow access points for monitoring the overall gas network. These are essential service uses, anything that pertains to valves or anything other than buildings that relate to distribution of gas, electricity, water, and sewer generally are considered essential services. And so what's being built at 7015 Haggerty Road and what's being built here at this site on the screen at 45581 Ecorse Road would fall under those definitions. The DTE has been cooperating with the township on just making sure that there's some landscaping around the perimeter of the site, and that there's, for example, the security fencing around both sites will have the more ornamental look to it with the curved spikes that were referenced earlier. And so you'll see those kinds of improvements around both of these sites, but otherwise largely empty with some valves. And if you have any questions, I'm glad to follow up with additional detail or connect with the people at DTE who I can get more answers from.
Commissioners?
Sure is a neat looking project. They're doing a lot of work.
Yeah.
Those are some big pipes.
Is that project, you said at Ecorse Road, is that at the intersection of Ecorse and Haggerty on the northeast, or, northeast corner that they've had shut down for 2 years? Yeah.
That particular intersection, I am not 100% sure that all relates to the natural gas work being done by DTE, but I think a lot of it is.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Commissioners?
Thanks for the report, Director.
Yes, thank you. Do we have any questions or comments in general? Updates?
We plan to have a meeting on September 13th. That's my only update.
Sounds good. At this point, I would like to express our condolences to the Mytek family for the loss that they experienced. Bob was the artist at Independent, and we do appreciate the Independent as being our reporter of what goes on in our township. So I think as a commission, we would like to pass along those condolences. You're welcome. Do we have anything else? Anybody? Then I guess we're ready to entertain that infamous motion for.
Sure. Make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Support.
We've got a motion and support for adjournment. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? None. Okay. You're welcome.
First season, second season, 1 through 3. So I have like 3 episodes to go.
You know, I was gonna come tell you, I am just amazed at how good that picture came out in the paper. I sent it to you thinking, well, she's not gonna be able to use that.